Welcome back to Boom and Bust. My guest today is Goran Pesic. He is the chairman of the Policy Insights Forum. Goran, just in terms of this forum and some of the discussions and some of your conclusions, obviously you said the context right now is we've got this ongoing commission on foreign interference. It's been also exploded with the NSICOP report saying that certain parliamentarians may be unwitting or witting participants in foreign interference. What was the discussion like on these kinds of issues and general conclusions?
Yeah, so this was sort of more in the background of our conference. The sort of the thrust of it was the impact on the economy, and of course, this is Canada's interest when it comes to national security. We really kind of link it to the economy. But in the background, this commission has been occurring. And its findings are, how would I put it, a little bit more startling week to week. But this signals, again, as I said earlier, a lack of a political leadership culture on national security. As you can probably recall, there was a National Security Council that was announced as the highest form of cabinet here in Ottawa, chaired by the Prime Minister. Some of our guest speakers indicated that they hoped that this type of committee and that national security would receive regular attention, not just from time to time or ad hoc. So the lens here is on really political leadership. I think the bureaucracy is advising ministers and the Prime Minister on topics that are timely, sensitive, and important. But I do think this is a political leadership matter that we're really discussing today.
Got it. I guess one point of intersection on the economy as well as national security are the cyber threats. Was that another topic that you discussed?
Yeah, so the cyber threats are increasing, they're not decreasing. And the mechanisms for the government to deal that with the private sector are a little bit inconclusive. There's a lot of gaps that still need to be addressed. There was a lot of discussion around the modernization of the CSIS Act, which is now 40 years old. Believe it or not, that was 40 years ago when the CSIS Act was first enacted. And much of the tools that were relevant for the last 40 years are almost irrelevant today. So in this technological age where our economy is 80%, 90% services, one would say, i.e. digital things, this puts the economy at much greater risk than any other time in Canadian history.
And so we're starting to talk about what can be done to stem some of these threats. I'd love to get a more expansive discussion on this for our broadcast. So can you take us through some of the conclusions or some of your conclusions?
Yeah, so part of it is awareness, education, the need to have a resilient national security culture. And this is why we included provinces, because traditionally they're not at the table. Neither is the private sector, or it's in pieces, if you will. So by trying to emphasize that the need for the new national security framework to be all inclusive of provinces and territories and the private sector, as well as academia, can we get ourselves to a good place? Now, much of our allies have already done this successfully, like in Australia, for example. We did have a guest speaker that was from Australia and knows well the national security environment there, and indicated that Canada was a bit behind and could take some lessons from Australia. This, of course, is not a surprise because we're not part of AUKUS, as you know, Tony, and therefore we're somewhat of a disadvantage when it comes to this type of arrangement, security, architecture, and information sharing.
And also the UK, any commentary on where we stand vis-a-vis the UK?
Yes, we had Brigadier Ben Berry with us from the UK, and he indicated that, if Canada needs support, it needs to raise its right hand and ask for it. We're in a position where we are not asking our allies to give us best practices to help us accelerate and catch up with everyone. I think the feeling around town is that, again, when it comes to political leadership, it's somewhat absent. And I think this is what's causing, if you will, the constraint here in Ottawa and across Canada. I would suggest that, currently there is perhaps a conflict of interest that's taking place in terms of at least how this commission is playing out, and the role that certain leaders, if you will, whether they're at the center or others, need to step up and need to be clear about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable when it comes to Canadian national security. And this is the issue. We don't have many experts,
Right.
surprisingly. So if there are students listening on this program, which I'm sure many are across Canada, this
Yes.
is the industry
Yes.
to be part of. Because I do believe that once
We're gonna
we
take
get
a-
our national
We're going to take a break. Hold that thought, Goran. We're going to take to commercial. We'll be back with your insights after these messages.